Right.
Susan Hemmingsen lives in New Zealand. She's a long-term reader of the Urantia book. She goes right back to the mid-70s, isn't it, Susan?
Mid to late 60s.
Mid to late 60s. So there you go. Wow.
Hmm.
And Susan is currently the New Zealand representative of ANZURA, an association of Urantia Association. And she's going to give a presentation for us on truth in relation to COVID-19. So I'll hand you over to Susan.
I hope that some of the content of my presentation doesn't sort of grate on your own personal beliefs, whatever they are regarding COVID-19. But my journey sort of investigating a lot of what goes on with COVID-19 sort of started with my siblings. So what I've done is I've sort of put a presentation up so that you can see it. Now let's see if I can get it onto the screen. Right, now, first of all, being truth is something that we all sort of strive to know. But just a couple of quotes from the Urantia book to start with, in regards to the spirit of truth. In accordance with your request, Gabriel and all concerned will cooperate with you in the express desire to end your Urantia bestowal with the pronouncement of a dispensational judgment of the realm, accompanied by the termination of an age, the resurrection of the sleeping world survivors, and the establishment of the dispensation of the bestowed spirit of truth. Number 2, the second reference to the spirit of truth. Pour out upon the planet of your bestowal the spirit of truth, and thus make all normal mortals on that isolated sphere immediately and fully accessible to the ministry of the segregated presence of our Paradise Father, the thought adjusters of the realms. Now, my search for truth during the current pandemic. The discussions with family members started when I asked my sister, who's an anti-vaxxer, whether she would have a vaccine for COVID-19 when one was developed. She then began sending me anti-vax videos, the first of which featured a Judy Mikovits. Before I viewed this, I thought I'd look into the credentials of this doctor and found that only her followers thought that she was one of the most accomplished scientists of our time. I searched many sites which refuted her claims, and then a Urantia book reader led me to the video links below, which contain facts completely contrary to hers. They possibly won't be watched by her followers, but if anyone wants these links, feel free to show to any you know who are sort of sitting on the fence regarding these conspiracy theories. At the time, I also was talking to my son, who teaches philosophy in Guam, of all places, and he said, "Oh, would you like to have my series of lectures?" He said, "I've just done a series of lectures on conspiracy theories." So, of course, I said, yes, I would, and so I sat through those, which gave me a better understanding of the minds of people who sort of believe things that seem totally outlandish. Then I was told that she told me that COVID-19 doesn't exist and that the world was actually controlled by alien, half lizard, half human shapeshifters. And we were being locked down to give us practice and being dominated at a later time. So, now, why didn't the Urantia book warn me of this? As far as I can remember, one planet is prohibited in interfering with the evolution or affairs of another. There are many, many references in the Urantia book stating that no celestial personalities are allowed to interfere in anything which abrogates our free will or our evolutionary progress. And how did they come up with the half lizard, half human concept? Well, I found out after being sent a video of David Icke that he was the source of this incredulous theory. Research found that he was a former sports broadcaster who, after visiting a psychic, was told he was the Godhead. So all his theories, and he's got quite a large following, although these days he isn't so much saying he's the Godhead, but he still believes in these alien shapeshifters. Then I started receiving posts which said that vaccinations kill millions, along with a list of all the toxic ingredients in them which kill people. So what is the truth? Research of the facts found the opposite was true. They saved millions. One of the toxic ingredients that they said in their list of all these terrible things that are in vaccines was mercury. But on researching this, I found that far more mercury is ingested by eating a 5-ounce can of tuna. So, but the people who believe these things don't research. They're not interested in researching. And social media, the way that it is today, if you search on something that's sort of slightly bizarre, then at the side will be presented to you, because of the algorithms, lots more things that are more and more and more bizarre, and you end up going down a wormhole. So I can sort of understand how they get there. Oh, this is another one. I found another one. I found another one, and on they go. Also, too, that in vaccinations killing people, the side effects were minimal and deaths extremely rare. I went on to many, many, many sites searching this information, and pretty well it's all, you know, all the studies and have come up with the same. Adverse reactions do occur in people with underlying health issues such as an immune deficiency. Also, one of the side effects, adverse side effects, is fear of vaccines, and people often have an adverse reaction because they're so scared of getting a jab. Then what worries me about believing that COVID-19 doesn't exist relates to mask wearing and the consequent danger to others, refusal to vaccinate when one is available and thus making herd immunity unobtainable. What are all the immunologists, geneticists and other medical specialists all doing by pretending COVID-19 exists? Are they all, you know, I don't know. And what are people dying of? The Urantia book says, when there is so much good truth to publish and proclaim, why should men dwell so much upon the evil in the world just because it appears to be a fact? The beauties of the spiritual values of truth are more pleasurable and uplifting than is the phenomenon of evil. Just as an aside for, you know, people aren't dying of, you know, COVID doesn't exist. In the United States, between the 15th of March and July the 11th, 45,300 people died, more than what would be in a normal year. Italy, 10,000 more. Interestingly, in Germany, it was only 1% above the normal death rate. That's sort of something else that can be explored, but I won't go into that here. Faith most willingly carries reason along as far as reason can go, and then goes on with wisdom to the full philosophic limit. And then it dares to launch out upon the limitless and never-ending universe journey in the sole company of truth. Then I received this email from my brother. Hey Sue, I believe vaccinations are extremely dangerous, deadly. I don't believe COVID-19 exists. I believe 5G technology is dangerous, deadly. I believe Bill Gates is evil. Maybe I'd better stop. And then he continued, my greatest belief is in the truth. It's unfortunate that the truth is easily distorted, meaning I'm the one that's distorting it. Nothing you or anyone says, writes, communicates will change my beliefs. And then maybe they will, ha, ha, ha. These are the subjects, these are subjects I don't choose to discuss with you purely because we will never agree. I respect the fact that you're entitled to your belief, as I would hope you respect my entitlement to my beliefs. I don't believe this is caused to adversely affect my relationship with you. There are many reasons I love you as a sister, a friend and an all-round honest, good-hearted person. So I was just absolutely flabbergasted. I just could not believe my intelligent brother was carrying these same conspiracy theories. I just could not believe it. I was really shocked. I prayed, you know, I thought, what can I do? How can I? But I realized that nothing I could say and no facts would persuade them from their views. The only glimmer of hope came from his last sentence, which was, nothing you or anyone says, writes, communicates will change my beliefs. Or maybe they will. And so far, this hasn't come to pass. Where am I? Okay. All along, I've said I was happy to review or read their material, but asked that they provide me with facts and not opinions, because everything they sent me was somebody saying something with nothing whatsoever to back it up. And I've never been one to take something that someone says, aside from the Urantia book, of course, and I've got to know how they came to that conclusion, but none were forthcoming because there aren't any. I'd explained that my information came from legitimate scientific studies, and did they understand how scientific studies were done, who does them, and how many universities and private institutions carried out research around the world. Most of the things I asked, I didn't get a reply to. So their position meant that all the scientists involved in all the research relating to COVID-19 was done with malicious intent. What a shame that they failed to recognise the genuine and honest endeavours of all these people who, on the whole, chose this line of work to help mankind. This made no difference. Why? Because all media, the World Health Organization, and many other sources of scientific information was being controlled and therefore could not be relied on for truth. After previously sending a myriad of facts, I was half expecting what happened next. I was sent the following link, and it comes from the Skeptics Society, regarding the Urantia book. And although the article didn't completely deny the claims of the origins of the Urantia book, it contained quotes from Martin Gardner and Matthew Block and others. Now they were asking me to legitimise the Urantia book using the same methods one would use to gather scientific information. So yes, if I was so interested in facts, give them proof that the Urantia book was true, that it was a revelation. And of course I couldn't, other than to say that physical and spiritual things required different proof. Proof of something in the physical world required facts derived from research, but proof of something in the spiritual world was a personal experience. Because I knew any further discussions on contentious subjects was futile and that any proven facts would be disputed by my siblings, I set about looking for quotes in the Urantia book which related to disease and infection and how these truths have had an impact on my belief and understanding of these subjects. This is what I found. So there's a lovely COVID-19 blown up for you guys to see. So I was looking for quotes to see what was said about health, disease, what happened in the past, how this reflects on what is happening today, and what can be expected in the future. The celestial help available now. The ministering angels function in many areas, but specifically for this topic, we have continuous help by, among others, the ministry of the angels of health. These are the seraphic ministers assigned to the assistance of those mortal agencies dedicated to the promotion of health and the prevention of disease. The present corps is the sixth group to serve during this dispensation. Although this next quote in paper 65, The Over Control of Evolution, sponsored by a life carrier of Nebadon, resident on Urantia, specifically deals with injury and not viruses, we are told, many features of human life afford abundant evidence that the phenomenon of mortal existence was intelligently planned, that organic evolution is not a mere cosmic accident. When a living cell is injured, it possesses the ability to elaborate certain chemical substances which are empowered so to stimulate and activate the neighboring normal cells that they immediately begin the secretion of certain substances which facilitate healing processes in the wound. And at the same time, these normal and uninjured cells begin to proliferate. They actually start to work creating new cells to replace any fellow cells which may have been destroyed by the accident. Then looking at how ancient man dealt with disease. Ancient man had his own way of dealing with disease, and although many on our planet use science to replace superstition, some still do not, or in many cases have a foot in both camps. However, it's heartwarming to see, regardless of the absence of scientific knowledge, how sincere the ancients were. Fasting, dieting, and counter-irritants were often used as remedial measures. Human secretions, being definitely magical, were highly regarded. Blood and urine were thus amongst the earliest medicines and were soon augmented by roots and various salts. The shamans believed that disease spirits could be driven out of the body by foul-smelling and bad-tasting medicines. Purging very early became a routine treatment, and the values of raw cocoa and quinine were amongst the earliest pharmaceutical discoveries. Among some people, disease was thought to be caused by a wicked conspiracy between spirits and animals. This gave rise to the belief that there existed a beneficent plant remedy for every animal-caused disease. The red men were especially devoted to the plant theory of universal remedies. They always put a drop of blood in the root hole left when the plant was pulled up. Some of our current religious groups believe that faith is all that is required to heal. But in paper 90, Shamanism, Medicine Men and the Priests, the Urantia book says, the faith required to get well under the foolish ministrations of one of these ancient shamans was, after all, not materially different from that which is required to experience healing at the hands of some of his latter-day successors who engage in the non-scientific treatment of diseases. But we must also remember, when you presume to sit in critical judgment on the primitive religion of man, or on the religion of primitive man, you should remember to judge such savages and to evaluate their religious experience in accordance with their enlightenment and status of conscience. Do not make the mistake of judging another's religion by your own standards of knowledge and truth. There are many ways we humans try to overcome disease, some efficacious and some not. But during Jesus' third preaching tour, there was a thoroughgoing discussion on the whole subject of human superstition. And one of the things Jesus said was, charms and relics are impotent to heal disease, ward off disaster, or influence evil spirits. The belief in all such material means of influencing the spiritual world is nothing but gross. And Jesus' mother thought that he wasn't immune from disease. In July of this year, 1 month before Jesus was 4 years old, 3 BC, an outbreak of malignant intestinal trouble spread over all Nazareth from contact with the caravan travellers. Mary became so alarmed by the danger of Jesus being exposed to this epidemic of disease that she bundled up both her children and fled to the country home of her brother, several miles south of Nazareth, on the Megiddo Road. I don't know if that's the right pronunciation, near Sarid. They did not return to Nazareth for more than 2 months. Jesus greatly enjoyed this, his first experience on a farm. So even in those days, I mean, his mother obviously, knew enough of diseases to know that you can catch a disease from another person. So it's interesting that she took him away, even though we don't know. Oh, I won't go into that in mind. So why are we so ravaged by this COVID-19 virus? Is this the same as on other planets? The life carriers said in paper 65, the over control of evolution, and this is sort of under a heading, the influence of Adam and Eve on our health. But throughout all of this biologic adventure, our greatest disappointment grew out of the reversion of certain primitive plant life to the pre-chlorophyll levels of parasitic bacteria on such an extensive and unexpected scale. This eventuality in plant life evolution caused many distressful diseases in the higher animals, particularly in the more vulnerable human species. When we were confronted with this perplexing situation, we somewhat discounted the difficulties involved because we knew that the subsequent admixture of the Adamic life plasm would so reinforce the resisting powers of the resulting blended race as to make it practically immune to all diseases produced by the vegetable type of organism. But our hopes were doomed to disappointment owing to the misfortune of the Adamic default. It is also interesting to observe how some can be exposed to disease, but because of having more Adamic blood, they are naturally more resistant. Scientists do observe the differences in people's immune systems to disease, but most are not aware of the Adamic source of this immunity. The Urantia book says, the body cells of the material sons and their progeny are far more resistant to disease than those of the evolutionary beings indigenous to the planet. The body cells of the native races are akin to the living, disease-producing microscopic and ultra-microscopic organisms of the realm. The so-called white races of Urantia are the descendants of these blue men as they were first modified by slight mixture with yellow and red, and as they were later greatly upstepped by assimilating the greater portion of the violet race. Peoples must do so much by way of scientific effort to withstand so many physical disorders. You would be far more disease resistant if your races carried more of the Adamic life. The Urantia book says 550 million years ago, the life carrier core returned to Urantia. In cooperation with spiritual powers and superphysical forces, we organized and initiated the original life planets of this world and planted them in the hospitable waters of the realm. All planetary life, aside from extraplanetary personalities, down to the days of Caligasti, the planetary prince, had its origin in our three original, identical and simultaneous marine life implantations. Peoples must do so much by way of scientific effort. Now, I said that before, but, I just wonder, if that's what all our scientists are sort of trying to do at the moment. There's been apparently more collaboration between scientific communities during this COVID pandemic than's ever been seen before. So, that I won't go on to that one. On a normal planet, so if we were more advanced and we didn't have an Adamic default, and we did have more of the violet blood, religious faith, the positive leading of the indwelling divine presence, unfailingly enables God-knowing men to bridge that gulf existing between the intellectual logic, which recognizes the universal first cause as it, and those positive affirmations of the soul, which aver this first cause is he, the Heavenly Father of Jesus' gospel, the personal God of human salvation. We can all witness the vast efforts of all the virologists, immunologists, geneticists, and other scientists around the world communicating with each other in an unprecedented way and sharing their research to help overcome this pandemic. The quote below portrays what happens on a normal planet after the arrival of the post-bestowal sun. Of course, we've already benefited from the bestowal of Jesus, our post-bestowal son, but as we were not as we were not at the usual stage of evolution that exists on a normal planet for this bestowal, the advancements in this quote below are not ours. Under the heading 4 in progressive civilization, one of the points indicating a progressive civilization in relation to disease prevention, among other things, says, during this era, the problems of disease and delinquency are virtually solved. Degeneracy has already been largely eliminated by selective reproduction. Disease has been practically mastered through the high resistant qualities of the Adamic strains and by the intelligent and worldwide application of the discoveries of the physical sciences of preceding ages. The average length of life during this period climbs well above the equivalent of 300 years of Urantia time. In the province of prayer, and even in actual bacterial disease, prayer has many times added to the efficacy of other remedial procedures. Prayer has turned many an irritable and complaining invalid into a paragon of patience and made him an inspiration to all other human sufferers, which I really like. Personal, spiritual, religious experience is an efficient solvent for most mortal difficulties. It is an effective sorter, evaluator, and adjuster of all human problems. Religion does not remove or destroy human troubles, but it does dissolve, absorb, illuminate, and transcend them. True religion unifies the personality for effective adjustment to all mortal requirements. Religious faith, the positive leading of the indwelling divine presence, unfailingly enables the God-knowing man to bridge that gulf existing between the intellectual logic, which recognizes the universal first cause as it, and these positive affirmations of the soul, which aver this first cause is he, the Heavenly Father of Jesus' gospel. Now I've said that one. One of the things Jesus taught, and which was accepted even by, and which is accepted even by those who claim they're no longer religious, is the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And so we must clearly recognize that neither the golden rule nor the teaching of non-resistance can ever be properly understood as dogmas or precepts. They can only be comprehended by living them, by realizing their meanings in the living interpretation of the Spirit of Truth, who directs the loving contact of one human being with another. That's just somebody coughing. Now, freedoms. This is what's going on around the world. No mandated masks or shutdown. Freedom first. What are they actually wanting freedom from? I can't really understand this. There are demonstrations around the world regarding freedoms being denied. The freedom not to wear a mask when recommended by most scientists. This so-called freedom can be viewed both ways. In the narrow view, maybe it is freedom denied, but in the wider view, and in light of the Jesus teachings regarding the golden rule, it can also be viewed as a freedom to help protect your fellow man from a nasty pandemic. A lot of Asian countries which bore the brunt of the first SARS outbreak and where people have experienced the efficacy of mask wearing, it's highly accepted. Yes, you do have the freedom not to wear a mask, but if you are infected, the freedom of others to catch this virus from you is denied. There's another image. And last thoughts. Our thoughts and prayers are with all Urantians who are going above and beyond during this pandemic, and to those whose loved ones have preceded us to the mansion worlds. And last thing, I think it's 2006, happy 2027, but it must be 2026. Is that right? Who can correct me?
2026, yes.
Yeah.
There's no near zero.
There we go. Done.
Corrected.
And that is my presentation.
Thank you, Susan, for that. And I really enjoyed your journey through the Urantia book in your presentation. That was quite interesting.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan.
My pleasure.
So, does anyone have any questions or comments? Raise your hand.
Yes. Hi, Christian.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Listen, I really enjoyed your presentation, and especially, as Trevor said, the quotes from Urantia book. And I think the hardest thing I've found in all of this is that it's so hard for people to keep an open mind. And what's happening in the world at the moment is that everyone's getting divided. And we're losing our sense of unity. You know, and Urantia book says it's unity, not uniformity. And I think
Yes.
we've lost the ability to be open-minded in our search for the truth, to keep open, which doesn't mean that we can't form our own opinions. But I certainly know with my first 4 children, because I started life with my family, with my children, and my wife is born-again Christian. So when I read the Urantia book, and I'd almost got to this conclusion myself, that why would God the Father send his son to shed his blood? I was totally unable to communicate that to my children. And although I said, look, just keep an open mind and read the Urantia book, they've never been able to, because for them, for me to take that position that I didn't believe in the blood of Jesus, then I wasn't saved. And I know, for one, that's in the media and the researchers all the time on the internet, that since the internet's been in existence for, say, the last, let's just go back 10 years, what you could search for on the internet when it started and what you search for now is a very different kettle of fish, we could say. And in all of the searches, and even you trying to find the truth for you and your brother holding a totally different opinion to it, which I totally get. Like, I've had that with my children, the thing that you're going through with your brother. Even when you do search, there's little things in there where you think, oh, it's like that proverb in the Bible that says, you know, a little fly spoils the whole ointment. And you can be kind of going down a track and thinking that you're getting towards the truth, and then you go, oh no, what's David Icke, for instance, who's got a lot of good things to say, and you know, he starts talking about reptiles and things, and you just go, oh, he's kind of lost the plot a bit, you know.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something that I saw the other night, which you might all like to watch if you keep an open mind, and it's a documentary that you can only watch now. It's called LondonReal.tv, LondonReal.tv, and it's a documentary called The Plandemic, and it goes into a whole background that we might not all have known about. It goes into the media, it goes into a lot of things, but I'd suggest whoever wants to watch it that you just watch it, even if to get a different viewpoint. Now, if you do a search on this documentary on mainstream media or to Snopes or all of the fact-checking sites, they will say it is just absolutely a conspiracy theory. But I think if you watch it with an open mind, it might give you a new conversation with your brother, for instance, because it's probably, I think, one of the most groundbreaking documentaries of our time, and the people that are in it are they are doctors and they are scientists, and it's a different opinion, and it's just worth watching. I only watched it last night, actually. Someone sent it to me, and I think only about 1.6 million people have seen it, because it's been banned on Facebook, on YouTube, on everything, and it's kind of been very poo-pooed through all the scientific community. But when you watch it, I just think, it might just be another slither of something that's worth taking into account in what's happening in the world. I mean, I know, for instance, in Australia and New Zealand, funnily enough, you know, the lockdowns that are occurring here, like I think last year about 800 people died of the flu and the virus, and there's actually more people that have died in Australia this year from the flu and the virus than COVID. And they say that the repercussions of this, the shutting down of our food chains, the shutting down of schools, taking people out of the sunlight, which helps our immune system, and putting them in rooms and making them wear face masks and all of this. And I'm not taking a side here. I'm just saying, when you look at what's happening in Australia, in Victoria, a state here, where police now have the power to go in houses without a search warrant. They put a curfew. Because I think 70 people have been affected, and you ask the question, if we weren't doing that, would there be thousands of dead people? And I can't answer that question. But I do know, sitting here in Australia and viewing you over the Tasman in New Zealand, that what's happening is quite huge. I mean, some people are saying that we might be wearing face masks for the next 3 years. Australian government's saying, well, we're going to have a free vaccine soon. And I can see that what's going to happen here is I'll go, it's free, you can all have it. If you don't get it, your children can't go to school. If you don't get it and you have a vaccine passport, you're not going to be able to use public transport. And look, the future's coming very quickly, and these changes are happening very quickly. And as I said, I haven't made up my mind one way or the other. I'm just looking at what's happening. But yeah, it's a huge subject. And a huge thing, because it's historically on the planet, it's just such a massive thing we're going through. I mean, all the countries in the world, there's no travel. I can't even fly to New Zealand and see my family there for I don't know how long. So it's just been a massive thing in all of our lives, you know. But yeah, thank you for your presentation. It was
That's
really
all right.
good.
I agree with you that it's massive, but I must say I've spent hours and hours and hours, you know, researching every claim that they made, you know, every video that they sent me. I wouldn't just go to one source, I'd go to many sources. And when you know, you could obviously see what was happening and what was the truth, and there was no evidence whatsoever other than opinion. Opinion, you can have whatever opinion you like, you're entitled to believe whatever you like, but if you want me to believe it, you have to prove it to me, and it has to be, when it's a scientific situation like this is, it has to have scientific facts, it has to have studies, it has to have all the things that medicines and vaccines and whatever have to go through in order to be safe for humans to use.
Listen, Susan, I want to say to you directly how much I appreciated and honor your scholarship in putting together a clearly presented presentation.
Oh, thank you.
I thought it was great. I thought also, I commend your bravery, because one of the areas in all my study with the Urantia book is not to veer into political attitudes, because as soon as you do that, you split the world between one side and the other. It's very divisive. So you try not to go in there, but you touched upon a sense of cosmic sanity and how to do it. And I thought, I just wanted you to know, I thought you were very brave to start off that way, but you ended it, you know, with the sense that you ended it with the sense of what the Urantia book says, and you brought it back to what I call Michael's creation of Nevedon, the current evolved supreme level of understanding and wisdom is in our revelation. It is fundamental to me. And anytime I hear any kind of conspiracy or other things going on, the first thing I do is say, does it rub edges with my fundamental faith in the metaphysics of this revelation on the level of spirit, mind, and matter? That's what I use to give me a sense of cosmic sanity and cosmic balance. I just want to say, Susan, you were brave, but you did it with really a completion of thought that I just want to applaud you for it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, so we've got a few other people with their hands up. I think Aubrey, your hand's up.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry, I won't be long here. I wanted to just, first of all, concur with virtually everything Stuart said. I couldn't have been more impressed with the presentation, and everything that you did, Susan, was very informative and well put together. My question would be, I might have missed this because I had some interruptions going on during your presentation, but did you ever present that information to your brother? And if so, what was his response?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And every time that I presented any information that was absolutely, you know, you just couldn't believe that, you know, it wasn't true, then that's when the old thing comes in that all the media is being manipulated. You know, it's every source of information is manipulated, so you don't have to believe anything. And
So he's a major conspiracy theorist.
Yes, and I could not get past that. So no matter how true it might be, they would not accept it as being true at all. Even though the facts were presented, even though there were scientific studies behind it, you know, and more than one study on a particular topic. Here's the result from here, here's the result from here, here's it from here and here and here. Didn't matter, it made absolutely no difference, totally ignored it. Oh, I don't believe that, and then that on to the next, you know, conspiracy theory.
That exactly mirrors everything I see from all of the trolls on social media that are literally the anti-vaxxers, the anti-maskers, the anti-freedom crowd. And to me, they are all being fed, perhaps I'm wrong, but it seems to me they're all being fueled by the alt-right movement that is taking place around the world, and particularly in the US right now. So if I'm right on that, then I think the problem is going to be far, far deeper than just convincing somebody that there's truth that they're ignoring. And sorry, I'm going to have to get off here quick because my cockatoo's about to wake up and let me know he doesn't like sharing my time. So I just wanted to get in there mainly that you did a very nice presentation. I had just joined the whole thing just at the start of your presentation, so it was a really delightful surprise. And I also want to commend everybody else's input because I was very impressed with it. And I'm going to just mute myself now. Thank you all again, and I'll stand by and watch how things develop.
Okay, thanks Aubrey.
I thought, Susan, your presentation was very, very good. The funny thing was that what you said was happening with your brother is probably exactly the same with my sister Mary and I. And she's over in Byron Bay there or wherever. You know, we just agreed to differ if we were going to discuss anything. I mean, she doesn't believe in vaccines. Now, so this freedom thing is going to be very difficult because the Urantia book talks about false liberty, doesn't it, sometimes? When we think, you know, liberty in some people's eyes really is anarchy. So there's got to be, her daughter was asked to get an injection, flu injection, to stay in her job, and she's refused. So it's going to be, you know, one of the Christian, you mentioned this, people being forced things, and so she wants, if she quits her job, she should get some kind of redundancy and stuff. You know, do you allow people like scientists to control you? But I understand that the greater good is the important thing. But if we're all thinking on so many different levels, it's crazy. If there's minds, and it seems to be that me and my sister, we chose not to meet at this moment because they're just, I mean, if you based your life on, you are what you eat, you're not going to agree with me, who supports scientific, hypothesis and, proving things using the scientific method, which is far more real and far more secure than, it's natural, comes out of the ground or whatever. So that was very interesting. I didn't know there were those quotes on the plant thing in the Urantia book. And I thank you for that. I don't, it's not just the question of science though, is it? It's also a question of morality, and that's the big one, how we affect other people around us. Well, people can die of misery too, and I understand that. And I felt so saddened when I found out that people couldn't be with their elderly, family and die. So how do we solve this? And I think scientific proof would be the only way, but I get on with my sister very well. We just don't discuss that. It's kind of just one of those things I've accepted. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Mark. Go ahead,
Thanks.
Ian.
Yeah, it's a question but a statement. It's I'm a vice chair of an aged care board, and three of our 7 board don't want to have vaccinations, so we're not even allowed on the property. All our board meetings are being conducted, via Zoom at the moment. But my brother's one of those who's the anti-everything as well, and he's only sent me this week the Commonwealth Constitution Act, and Clause 51 is that the Commonwealth, the Australian government, cannot conscript people against their will for vaccinations. But it's the state government that's in Victoria that's actually put out in May the statement that no person can work or visit or go to an aged care centre if they haven't had the flu vaccination. And one of the bits of that my brother sent me is a class action to challenge that. But even if a class action goes through against the state trying to ban people from entering into an aged care facility if they haven't had a vaccination, those things still take a year. And so you think about it, and I say my attitude even to my brother is, well, he can think that way, and I can't go and do my duty in an aged care board member on site in any manner, but those things will pass. I see this whole pandemic episode as an exercise in learning to be patient. The systems will have headbutts, everyone will have their different opinions, and we'll all grow from it. And it's just not going to happen as quick as we thought. So I just wanted to make that statement, and thanks, Susan, because I think you did challenge it head on, and you challenged it in a very down-to-earth practical approach, and there wasn't any airy-fairy bits around it. And my commiserations with you, and my commiserations with my brother too.
Yes. It seems we've all got one somewhere or know someone.
Okay, Susan, thank you very much for that. Very, very good presentation. It reminds me of that bit in the Urantia book where it says, first life, when they're talking about the epochs of human evolution, they go, first life was a struggle for existence, and then a struggle for a standard of living. The next stage will be for the struggle for the quality of thought. And I think we're entering that age, and so interesting times for us.